What's going on, guys? It's Hope Taylor here from Afterthought, and we have a special edition today. I have an amazing guest, and she is going to talk about panic attacks. My experience with panic attacks are... I didn't know they were happening to me. I just did not know they're happening to me. They don't feel like them. Like, they don't... It's not like the movies where you're like, oh my God, I'm amping myself up. It's not like a regular anxiety around one. It's just it's gonna hit you when you are not expecting it. The left jab, the left jab, the left jab. You're like, oh, work's stacking up. Like, oh, my home life sucks. Like, my boyfriend cheated on me. Oh, my animal's sick. And then it's like that right hook that's just like, doosh. Oh, can't breathe, can't see. Gotta still take this meeting because I'm trying to be productive. It's like, you're not gonna take that meeting. You're gonna take the floor. You're gonna take a seat. It's when life makes you take a seat and it's super unexpected. I think I just want to try to get to you guys before the certain stories that I've heard, the certain things that I've experienced, and kind of either inform you, or at least, you know, when you're going through it, you can immediately negate that fact that you are dying. Because I mean, every single person's like, I'm dying now. This is my time. This is my thing. Cool. I'm covered in cat hair and I've just used this hoodie as a napkin for like 2 days straight. Awesome. This is how I'm gonna die. Sweet. I didn't shave. Huh. Like, you just start thinking about all the stupid shit in your brain too. Almost if you can meditatively focus on the stupid shit to get yourself back out of it. But knowing that if you are a healthy individual and you are an entrepreneur and you are trying to make your own wealth and you are under a lot of stress and pressure and caffeine and lack of sleep and bad habits, that this is legit millennial wise knocking on your door. Okay, everybody, like, this is a condition for the millennials in my opinion, and generational. Like I said, it's for everybody and anybody, but if you guys could take a second to like the video if it helps you out and you're interested in the topic, that would really help the channel out. For a culture that's all about like health and wealth and finance, we are fucking just completely unsettled with ourselves, I'll say that. So I did an interview with a brilliant mind. Her name is Marta Pazos. She's a polymer scientist and she is a chemist for the government, which is great. She's got some awesome stories to tell about her home kitchen and the activities that she has whipping up there. And I thought it'd be funny to talk about what's the most extreme level of high pressure, because that's usually where us as entrepreneurs thrive. So she's the prime example of all the extremes, and I absolutely love her. So you're gonna love her too. I'm gonna let her introduce herself because she has so many titles that I'm definitely gonna slaughter. And take it away, Marta.
Thanks, Hope. Hi, everybody. Yes, I am Marta Pazos. My friends call me Dr. M, Dr. P, Dr. MP. I don't know, you name it. It doesn't really matter. But it actually sounds cool because, you know, I did go to grad school. So, and I remember putting the list of the reasons why you should go to grad school and stay in grad school. Being a doctor was one of them, or being called a doctor after you're done, it was one of them. So I am a scientist, and I actually call myself like one of the most technical scientists I know, because, you know, the older you get and the farther you get away from the graduation point, the more difficult it becomes for us to do technical work, right? You end up being more in managing or bureaucracy or paperwork or things like that, you know, it's hard to stay with the technology. At Estee Lauder, my job, at some points it was kind of stressful with a lot of responsibilities. So there was failures all over the globe. Sometimes I would have to take calls at like 8 p.m. regularly because a lot of manufacturing occurs in China, right?
Yep.
Or Korea or Japan. So, and I remember having to answer the phone, and I came out of the bar and there was somebody outside that was smoking and started like looking at me while I was on the phone talking about my Estee Lauder crisis. And he keeps staring at me, and I'm thinking, what is going on, creep?
Super weird. You're about to curse him out.
I am so happy I didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's like, I own everything. All of your dreams.
Because as soon as I hang up the phone, he comes to me and he tells me, I was eavesdropping, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of noticed on that one. But then he tells me, are you a polymer scientist? I'm like, yeah, I need one. I'm a program manager for the Army. I need somebody to consult for the Army. I'm like, you know, first thing that comes to your mind is like, this guy is
bullshit. I'm like, but I'll be like, this is the most creative way somebody's tried to get in my pants, because usually people don't understand polymer science. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always like into the creative, like, how are you going to try to drop the cock line? Like, how are we going to get to that? Like, let's play it out. But like, that's super
That's a very interesting pickup line. Are you a polymer scientist?
I'd be like, well, you're 25% there, because nobody knows what I'm saying usually. So like, I'm just interested.
No, that's for sure. That definitely made me stay for the conversation.
Yeah.
So we exchanged phone numbers, and he's like, I'm going to Australia tomorrow. I'd love to get together with you and have some drinks or something like that, because the person that I was waiting for had just come in. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll see. Yeah. We kept like texting all the time that he was there, like, trying to figure out how to do the arrangement for the consulting business. Since I don't have lab, all my consulting work had to be, so many times I was actually involved in projects that I could go to their lab. Like, for instance, I would go to somewhere in the middle of Virginia, the mountains of Virginia, actually really close to where Virginia Tech is. Nice. And enjoy the facilities of Army labs, that are normally managed by a company that is leasing the property, but it's Army ground.
They should have that. Like, that should be a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, the government has all these little hot spots like all over the place, and like, for military, for their own intent and purposes. It's like to think, and that's cool, because then you can kind of be like, it's like the Airbnb of labs. You're like, cool, I'm going to be here for a little bit. What's going on, guys? Like,
I thought about a venture like that. At some point I may actually do something like that, like an Airbnb for labs, because there's like, I found myself
for the
with
medical,
that problem.
Man, that's brilliant. Nobody steal that. That's her idea. Everybody. All right. She's trademarked it. It's fine. That's really good, because you have all these things for like consumer and like retail, luxury. We have hotels, but like something that's like, it would definitely take a lot of inspection or whatever. But like, I mean, for that certain like clearance and that level, I mean, it shouldn't be an issue whatsoever, because, you put in your verification and make a whole database of that.
Yeah. Oh no, like, to have that space where you can securely, you don't have to use your kitchen, because a lot of points throughout this consulting process, I was actually ordering chemicals, sometimes like calling up companies, telling them, hey, I have this project for the US Army. Can you send me a sample of this thing? And they would send it to my house, to my apartment in New York City, or my apartment in Atlanta. When I moved to Atlanta, they would just like send me all these things, because the moment that they hear consulting for the Army, they are like, ding, 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 like the contracts with the US Army are like,
oh, government contracts? Absolutely. They're going to be like ongoing work and endless supply. And like, we know they're gluttons for everything and all the things. So let's get her everything. You're like, guys, like, I'm trying to cook dinner I have a date over. This is just so inconvenient, but I'll take your crazy 8-foot package supply of whatever tank this is. I don't know, whatever they're sending you, whatever weird powder.
But I had so much fun doing those things. I had like my little Excel spreadsheet with all my formulations, recipes, and then I would order like this polycarbonate from this company. It was actually a company called Ube. Then I would order amines from Huntsman. I would be on the phone with like the salespeople from Huntsman, telling them all about this. And I'm like, no, can you just send it to my house, because I'm not sure where I'm going to work with it. And I was like, I'm going to work with it in my house. And I made one time. So on top of all these formulations, these were for like explosive and propellant fillers. But one time there was this Navy proposal that somehow I just wrote up the proposal. There was a call for proposals that I found. I wrote up the proposal like within the hour of like the deadline of the proposal. And I submitted it like whatever, like mostly to get some training on proposals. They picked up on it. They absolutely loved it. And all of a sudden I'm making formulations for coatings for Navy vessels in my Atlanta kitchen. I had already moved to Atlanta.
Oh my God. I love that so much. You're just like, whatever.
And they love them.
I know the pitching process too for government contracts as well, because it's like the SBA. Right? Like, I'd sign up to do that too. And like, you're probably like, that's not a small endeavor, people, what she was doing. She's just like, probably pushing it through. It's like so many pages. And like, it's basically like you're like
I
writing,
know.
you're doing like business proposal, like grant writing to the extreme, but especially your level of it. So that's hilarious. Like, so when you're making this stuff, are you like, I'm just like seeing you in your kitchen, and then I'm like, what was it called? Like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm like seeing you with like, like the bowl and like the egg beater, and you're like, do 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 do. This is gonna explode an entire ocean. No, I'm just kidding. Have you ever
I
been like,
have dedicated
yeah,
I have dedicated stuff. So it's amazing,
yeah,
like the things that you can buy on Amazon. I
I
do
know.
have something like right now I have 5 different blenders, but
Yeah.
that's because I'll talk about that later. But there is like things like a lab scale, a magnetic stirrer, spatulas, pipettes, all of that, beakers, all of that you can buy on Amazon. And thanks to the fact that I moved to Atlanta, now I have way more space where I can
I'm
do all
sure.
of
I'm
this
sure. And you know
work.
what I mean? Like they need to do like a Netflix movie, like a Netflix series about you. I think like you could even play you. You know what I mean? You're kind of like, remember that show Weeds? It was on
Oh
Showtime.
yeah, I
You'd be
do
like,
remember the show Weeds.
you'd be like the explosives, or like anybody willing to work on this and pitch it. I'll come down and shoot it. I actually got a guy, and like we're taking a little van trip up to the Poconos. I'm going to pitch him on that. I'd be like, dude, just like that. But it's based in Atlanta. So we already get that cool vibe. And you're like making explosives instead of selling drugs. So,
Well, I actually
yeah.
can do the other one too because I make my own tinctures as well, and they are very, very
Oh, I'm
potent.
sure you like know the exact level.
I did some research on that one too because I don't like smoking.
No.
It's just
Yeah.
me, but I do like the effect of weed,
Yeah.
of THC. I love it. It makes me feel very happy.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
love
because I don't like the
CBD.
smoking,
If you do CBD, we could get
I
something
can make you
going.
I
Yeah.
can make you like a CBD one too. I mean, I would have to get like weed that does not have THC, but I'm
We can
sure that
make,
it can be worked.
side note,
Yeah.
I was whitening my teeth last night because I'm all like, hey, we gotta look hot for this. And then
Yeah.
but I was like, oh no, like I was laying in bed and I was like, God, all of the child tooth pain, like it's terrible, everyone.
Oh yeah.
So I was just like, I
Yeah.
have these CBD drinks that I love. Like I absolutely
Oh,
love them.
okay.
And they're huge. Like the market for that is giant, by the way. And so I've
Oh
been
my
looking
God.
to,
My kid is gigantic.
yeah, it's like people are paying like, I am too. It's like four, like $3.99 to like $5.99 for like a little can, like
It's
of it.
crazy.
So like I'm looking to like make, eventually that's like a long-term game plan. I'm like, I would love to make a CBD drink also, so I'd stop spending the insane amount of money that I'm spending on them, and because they're freaking delicious. And I'm like, I'd market it all day long. So that's super cool that
We can work on something. We can
yeah,
do something. Trust me. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
the oil that I made, the THC oil, is like super potent, and
Yeah.
everybody I've given it to loves it because it doesn't have like alcoholic. I don't use alcohol.
No,
As
that's good.
opposed to like
Yeah.
most that use
They're
alcohol,
based,
I do
yeah.
not use alcohol for extracting because I found a
No.
better way to do this.
Secret. You got your secret
More to come.
stabilization. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm
That's your
not
secret sauce. Nope.
saying a word.
Nope. You keep
Nope,
that. That's brilliant.
nope.
That's brilliant. I'd love to
Yeah,
just like hang out in your place for a day. Cause like, so, you're the kind of person that's like me when there's so much going on, that's where we thrive, right? Like we like to keep our
yep,
brains active and we like to keep
yeah,
ourselves, feeling good about what we're doing and producing. And,
yeah,
that's what I think we're probably getting to now. Cause like, I mean, just hearing about the high level of your career at this point, like, so what happens, after this? Like you're in Atlanta and, you know, where does it take you? Because like there's so much stress you're going under, and me too. Like, but we're still active and we're
yeah,
still good at this point. You haven't had this show specifically about like panic attacks and anxiety. So there's not no
yeah.
fear, there's no fear in you. Like
So, which is why I was so surprised about my panic attack, right? So when I started consulting for the U.S. Army, I realized I need to really think about my future in terms of I am going to be dedicated to my own company, right? I can do consulting well already. I can whip up formulations for all different all
yeah,
kinds of products in my kitchen. And I definitely have an entrepreneurial spirit, right? Like that constant drive. I cannot just sit down in an office or occupy a chair. And then another thing is that I looked to people that had been in corporate for a long time, and they hated their job, they hated themselves, they hated their family. Right,
They
exactly.
have like that corporate
She's
face of
making
a
that
dead
face
stare.
of like
Just like,
monster. Yeah,
yeah, like they're
exactly,
just like a little dead eye.
exactly.
They're hardened and they're almost like it's like a like like if you're in an abusive relationship for a long time, you start to get like these thought patterns and processes about you. And I'm like, like it's got to be
How
so
to get out of it,
constrained.
right?
Yeah,
In a very violent way sometimes, right? And
absolutely.
I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that
No.
person. When the pandemic hit, I had my first maybe 4 to 6 weeks of being on the couch all day, watching Netflix until it shows, hey, are you still watching?
Oh no.
Um,
It's like, are you still being
like
a human
that's what
degenerate person? Like the rest is like, that's when you know you've been there. You're like, God damn it. Yes, I am. Cause like now my ass is falling asleep.
because I
So
have
we're here
nothing
now.
better to do.
Totally. Totally. Totally
So
there.
I started putting, so at that time also my the contract with the army was over. They we were working on getting a new one, but the person that gave me the contract in the first place, the one that I met at the bar, had moved to the government already. And so at that time I was in a spiral winding down rut,
Yeah. Just
right?
kind of finding yourself a little lost, like that whole dip. And we were
One
going to,
that I had to, yeah,
yeah.
pull
Yeah.
myself out of.
It's a,
How did
and
I do that?
entrepreneurs know that, you know what I mean? Yeah, I want to
I
hear
know.
this because this is super crucial, everyone, because when you're taking gigs, like you're a gig worker, like you're taking these certain ongoing projects, you got to know how to manage enough of them. And then like when to start the other ones in and out. So you can like, whether it's a pandemic or not, or like whatever is faced, we can like always keep ourselves lightly active, or you can work on that passion project on that in between. But like, that's a hellish place to be, is like the gaping area of like, wait,
Yep.
what are you gonna do? So what did
Yep.
you do? Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, I was still at Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I have my job that I hate.
Yeah.
The person that I am reporting to is never going to give me an opportunity beyond. I mean, she's not gonna vouch for me or anything like that, even though she says that. Um, what can I do? So I actually studied two things. One was I started a LinkedIn course to get more clients on LinkedIn,
Nice.
which was, it was to me like it was very pricey, but I figure I'm not traveling, so this is this is my travel budget, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I started doing was skincare formulations in my kitchen. I bought a few blenders and I made a hand sanitizing lotion. I actually managed to
Mm.
emulsify alcohol, which is very unique. I'm looking to commercialize that now. Thanks to that, I started marketing that product, and a few gentlemen picked up on that. And they asked me, can you do these other things? And I'm like, sure. So I kept sending, like, it was like every
Yeah.
week I would send them 5 different samples of 5 different things that I had just created in my kitchen. So I am now at the point that we're working agreement
That's
for licensing
perfect.
of the formulations and for
Yeah.
some corporation agreement with them because they realize how much money there is in skincare as well. So
Mm-hmm.
we're working on that, and on top of that, the my very good friend, the one that had given me the US contract, he had moved to the government and he gave me a contract bigger and better for the DoD for DPA Title III, which is the agency that makes sure that the US is provided with all we need to be safe and secure.
Oh wow.
So
Wow.
I came out of all of this, in the middle of all of that. All of a sudden, I have all these things, but I still had my job at Coca-Cola, which obviously, it was still there, but
Yeah.
so I had to do something with it. So my panic attack came when nothing of this had already materialized, but I
Yeah.
had realized that I had to live corporate, right?
Yeah.
That was the moment that my work, so the fact that my work in Coca-Cola was not going anywhere, was never going
No.
to give me the satisfaction. I knew that I had to leave that. That was when I had this, my body completely failed on me. The moment that I realized I need to leave corporate. I need to make this transition. I was actually, I remember perfectly, I was in my kitchen because
Yeah.
I'm always in my kitchen. And I am like working on some things. I was actually sending an NDA to one of the people that I am now working the formulations agreements with. And I'm like, I've been always very good at prioritizing doing those things that I know that are going to have the biggest impact in my next few days, right? So
Mm-hmm.
obviously the fact I wanted to have the greatest impression on these people, as she's very quick, she gets her stuff done, so the NDA is being returned in like
Yeah.
the 5 minutes after, right? And I'm
Efficient.
like, and I'm already noticing that my body is failing on me. But I'm like, wait a minute, you need to send you need to send that NDA before your body
Like,
fails on you.
yeah.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I see that my fingers, my fingers first, like I feel this tingling sensation that is already
Right.
coming from my chest. So the chest is already like I had a ton of breaks on my chest and it's tingling. And then the tingling sensation comes out from the chest all the way down through my shoulders and arms, and it just ends in my fingers. And it was almost like that tingling sensation was what was making my body stop, right? So it started in the fingers and
Yeah.
continued down, and I'm like, and then I started like feeling that I can't breathe. And I'm like, wait a
Whoa.
minute. So I hit send with the NDA. I tried to grab my phone at that time. I'm like, I'm going to grab my phone and I'm going to go and lay on bed because I feel
Yeah.
that something
It's
is not
getting
going
weird.
well.
Yeah.
I don't remember, like I blocked out
Wow.
from trying to grab my phone to laying on bed.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I remember is I'm laying on bed looking at my hands. My hands are not moving. I can't move my hands.
Oh man. You think like you got
I'm
that
thinking
paralyzation fear. You're like, I don't even know. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm dying and I'm gonna die
Yeah.
alone, and I'm gonna die without even being able to call 911 because I couldn't even grapple my phone.
Oh no. Oh, it's like one of those things where like you sat on your hand and it just doesn't feel like it's on your body, that disassociation. And there's no,
Exactly.
but you can kind of like, it just feels like you're like, I just can't. Like I've done that before. Where you try to grip something and it's just like, oh, yeah, no, no, no. But it's just
My
like,
body, and it hurts, right? And it
yeah,
actually hurts. So I'm
pain.
trying. And the thing is that normally when that happens to you, you still have the other hand,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Chances are that
It's
you
not
didn't
both.
like sleep on both hands.
Yeah.
But and you try to move one hand with the other, but in this case both hands were
Oh
completely
my
paralyzed. And at this
God.
point I feel my toes are also paralyzed. They're like separating, like when you
Yeah.
when you
So
have
it's
like
like, yep, the cramp type of deal, right?
the cramps,
Yeah.
yeah, the crampy type of. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna die. And then I'm like, no, I'm not gonna die. And I all of a sudden started thinking about meditation and concentrate on the breathing, find your center point, concentrate on your breathing. I couldn't concentrate on my breathing because I could barely breathe.
Yeah.
So what I did is I am going to concentrate on my heartbeat, which I couldn't hear, but it's like I'm just gonna fake my own heartbeat and
Yeah.
think about that. Because that's what meditation is all about, right? Get out of
Mhm.
your head
Yeah.
and concentrate in something that
Outside
is
of
going
you.
to prevent you from panicking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if it's outside of you, it's great, but it could also be your own
Internally.
breathing. But in this case,
Yeah.
it couldn't be.
Nope.
So I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna concentrate on just like a TikTok or a clock, or just think about it myself, right? And I started like taking long breaths at that point, and I'm like, finally, like I could finally, and I could feel my hands were loosening up as I was breathing. That's why I always say meditation in this case was to me key,
Yeah.
right? Like having learned meditation, which I actually incidentally I did during the pandemic too, because I found myself not being able to fall asleep so easily, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
then I actually learned a lot of from a lot of other sources that because during the pandemic you aren't doing anything different every day, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Groundhog's
lot
Day
more
gets a little
difficult
crazy. Yeah.
to
Your whole
fall asleep.
schedule totally gets whacked out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, well, thanks to the meditation that I learned because of the pandemic, that's how it actually, I mean, I'm not going to go to save me because I doubt that I would have died. I'm still young
Yeah.
and healthy, but
You probably would
it
have went
was not,
unconscious and then started breathing. But still, I mean, at
you
that
know,
point, if you hit
that's
your,
what I thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you would have like, I mean, hopefully it's like, you slip into that and then your body just loosens itself back up. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Like this is dangerous stuff. And so having these tools like you're talking about with that, because you could have hit your head. You know what I mean? You could have fallen and
You
smashed
know,
your head and then died that way.
I
That's
was
like
very
really,
afraid. Yeah, I was
yeah.
very afraid of hitting my head, or I was very afraid. I don't know why I all of a sudden thought of a stroke. Possibly because,
Uh,
I was so locked
Oxygen.
up that I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Spaz in your body.
I'm gonna have a stroke. Yeah.
Yeah. So easy.
And I'm like, and if I
Yeah.
have a stroke, that is like the worst thing that can happen to me because
Oh,
my brain is everything. I can't do anything without my brain.
dude, right? It's one of those things. Like, and that's such a beautiful thing. Like when we can be like, it's just so great. You strive to achieve like that is where you want to have like your talent, your consulting, your everything. But it's just so crucial. And it's like, I'm sure you look great and you're in shape and you look really healthy. So you eat right. But this is like one of those things. It doesn't really matter. Um, it'll happen and it'll happen to you when you're just doing something random, right? That's what people don't get there.
Exactly.
They think like panic attack, anxiety attack. Well, I don't have all that going on or whatever. And it's like, you'll have all this stress and you'll have all these thoughts and it's this whole subconscious nature. And if you aren't in that way of kind of the brain is like a muscle and we train it like we do the rest of our muscles. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't have that like muscle memory of being able to like deal with tension release and kind of like empty itself or clear itself a bit, it's going to start locking up and acting wonky on all forms because these things don't happen when you expect them when you're in your major attack. Like you're like, did you do? Many times I was sending out emails and talking to my roommate and I'd be like, go to stand up to go to the kitchen. I'd be like, I want to get a snack. And I'd be like, and mine would be like, my hands would start and they'd go completely numb from here to here. And then like, I just see straight black or whatever. But I mean, I'd still be like hanging on. I'd get a lot of ringing in my ears. It's crazy. I'd hear like that high blood pressure. I'm like, I'm gonna definitely have a heart attack. I'm totally gonna have a heart attack right now. I'm like, it's gonna
Yep.
happen. I'm like, uh-oh. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm like, but everybody's always like, yeah, I'm dying. I'm like, yeah, I'm dying right now. I don't know. But me, after
Yeah.
it was happening, and they'll happen once bad, they can happen again, but no, like they can be so ongoing. So mine were mild. They just like battered me for like weeks. I was like, I think maybe I should eat more food. And I'm like, that's not it. Water, that's not it. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but one thing people need to know too, make sure that that's in order. Cause you said you have low blood sugar as well. That can definitely help.
Very low, very low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. Me
Yeah.
too.
I have low
Mm.
blood pressure, low blood
Yeah,
sugar.
same.
I know that it's actually very favorable to have those things unless some episode like this occurs to you,
Yeah.
because I could have fainted on my way to
Yeah.
bed. But it
Yep.
was actually my defense mechanism because I have fainted before due
Mhm.
to my low blood pressure, right?
Yep.
And I always feel the moment when that's going to happen, so I try to sit down and put my hands put my head between my hands and try to breathe, so you get that blood pressure going again. But in this case it was like
No,
I can't
nothing
even
can
see,
do.
my vision went blur.
Yeah.
I could barely move. i
Yeah.
i don't even remember how I made it to the bed.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I would like to for people to know the most about these things is that unfortunately it can happen. I've always been like the rock that everybody else thinks that I am, emotionally untouchable in a way, right? Because
Yeah.
yes, like you said, I've been fearless my entire life. If I had to go to Japan, well, I'll go to Japan. If I have to go to Cuba, I'll go to Cuba. And all of a sudden I have this moment of clarity, really, like
Yeah.
because it was the clarity that I needed. I need to leave corporate, right? And that caused a panic attack, because it's not the the fallacy behind corporate too is that it creates this fake sensation of security,
Mhm.
because your job is so tied to your benefits, right? Your
Yeah.
medical, what am I going to do if I don't have medical? What am I going to do if I don't have a 401k? How are my kids going to be after I die? Things like, you
Mhm.
have life insurance through them too, and all these ridiculous packages that they give you. So you're trapped. And the moment that they decide that you no longer are needed for whatever reason, just because they have to cut a certain percentage, your life gets upended, and
Yep.
you got nowhere to
Everything
go.
at one
And when you're
time.
in your mid 40s or
Yeah.
50s, is like, corporations want very young people that are
Mhm.
there to put PowerPoint presentations together and zip the lib when they need them to.
Yep. Pretty, yeah. You're going to be basically somebody who can like navigate the newer technology and whatever. You're just like washed away. It's just like, get out. You know what I mean? Like, oh
Exactly.
yeah. Didn't you hear about that one cut thing? It's like, I've been here for 20 years. Like I have 2 more years to go. Well, and then like, they just don't give a shit. And, and like you said, this will happen. It's happened to producers I know. It's happened to, generationally too. I've seen this happen
Yeah.
to people who are like 25, and then I've heard stories of like, my mother and like, my roommate's mother, she's older, and the same thing. And it's usually like you drop down and it's almost like heart attack stroke like, where you're
Mhm.
locked up a bit and you think this is it, you're dying, your whole body is just hurting and sear. Either you can feel it or you can't, but it's so catered towards our own fear fest of like just perfect for us to F us up. Just ever so great. And like,
Yeah.
I remember this
To
guy
keep
came
you
back
on your toes, huh?
and it's almost like you're like me. You're like, no, dude, like I'm the one on the 40-foot ladder. Like I'm not scared. Like what the F is happening right now? Like this is not, everything's fine. You're like trying to almost like make excuses. Like you're like, no, this is not me. But then it does
Justify
happen.
yourself for
Yeah,
it.
you're like most embarrassed, but it's just like, no, once you can just understand it, you're like, no, this is very humanizing. And it's something that really, it's just like, hey, I need to definitely get in there and like slow it down. And it's so crucial because like, you know, being an entrepreneur or even like you work many jobs, you work for yourself, but you're contracted and you also have something stable. We like to keep productive. So just be aware because thank God, you're not driving. You're not in a certain situation when it's going to happen to you. So it's PSA for this one. And it's starts with meditation. Like you said too about the sleep, there's something called yoga nidra that I'd found. And it's really cool because it's like doing a body scan and you can do it for energy. You can do it in clarity before bed. And so you start and it basically slows down your nervous system. It slows down and it just kind of like helps you control all of that anxiety. And you start from
Mhm.
like your mind and kind of just do an outlined trace. And you set 3 manifestation goals that you'd like to have, just super simple. Start out by saying them and then you like kind of finish it out with saying it too. And every time I'm like, I'm so happy I did that. It takes 10 minutes, like take whatever. But I started doing that over the pandemic and that's been really great.
Body scans, I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love. I love to do them when I'm in a bathtub,
Yeah.
because you have to pay more attention, right? Like
Yeah.
when you are submerged in water, there is really like no delineation between yourself and the water, because the densities are similar, right? Like the earth
Mm,
and the air. So that's why we can float in certain waters too, right?
yeah.
So that's why I love to do it in water, because now you have to pay attention. Like when you go, especially when you go all the way down to your toes, you have to
Mm-hmm.
really pay attention to your toes. I would recommend that to everybody. Like fill your bathtub,
Yes.
put yourself in there and do a body scan, like from the follicles of your hair, feel the follicles of your hair all
Yeah.
the way down to your
Yeah.
toenails.
Oh wow, you get like, so I'm gonna try that one at least. Like, yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
I was getting like, and people are gonna be like, oh, I really gotta do that. But it's super fun when you can take that. You're like literally feel your forehead and your throat and trace your
Yep.
collarbones down to each finger. I'm talking, don't miss one. But sensory deprivation tank, like one of those like floating thingies, right? I'm gonna do one of
See,
those. I'm
yeah,
gonna do a body
yeah,
scan in
I
it. But
love those.
yeah, I've never done one before. So that's a cool concept to combine that together. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I used to
mm,
be one of those that believed that yoga, meditation, all of that was baloney. That was this
Yeah.
old
So,
new age
so was
thing.
I.
And, you know, I've always been like, I'm dealing with my stress by running. And the more
Yeah.
I run, the better. And, you know, actually during the pandemic, I got in even better shape than
Me
I
too.
was before. I can run for like an hour, no problem. But like the whole yoga meditation is something that I learned through the pandemic, and I recommend it to everybody and anybody. Even recently, I told my boyfriend if we could do it together, and he's like, do you mind if I pass? Like, he was already like judging, like, I'm not gonna do this.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, just, you know, just
Try
try
it.
it. If you want to leave. And all of a sudden he's just snoring like 5 minutes into the meditation. I hear and I'm like, yeah, I guess that it worked, huh?
You're like, I think he's gonna really like this one because like it's gonna be real relaxing for him. No, it's so true. It's so true. And I was the hard ass like that too. I was like, I'm like, I tried it. I was like, what's the most aggressive yoga I can get into? I'm like the really like sporty one. I'm like, and I remember going and my friend was
Punch a bag, you know.
yeah. Well, I boxed and did my whole thing's I boxed and did Muay Thai for years, right? So I was like, no, this is like my happy time, happy time.
Yeah,
And
I
like
know.
so relaxing. But no, my friend, side note, I just will never forget this class she took me to. And I remember being like, she was training to be a yoga instructor. And we go there, and then she's like, we're at this place, and she's like, we're doing this thing, and she's like, any new people in the class? And I was like, you know, me. And so we're going through and we're doing this like more sporty yoga. She's like, and we don't have to try so hard. We can, if we can't, if we feel like we're forcing it, you know. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you know, like, what do you mean? I'm like, all hype, and I'm like, this is easy. She's like,
It is really funny. I know. I hear you.
this is like years ago when I was younger. I'm like, yoga's not for
Yeah.
me. But no, I'm like, I've circled back around pandemic time. It's like it's given us, I feel like this last year and even the begin this whole year, still kind of getting back to where we're trying to find what's the new pace, what's the new normal. I'm happy to see and find that so many people were able to just like reshift, keep it positive. Like I've reshifted my focus on like, you know what? There's so many different paths that we can go. And life is such an interesting, beautiful thing that everything is shaping us. You know, it's like, no,
Yeah.
I try to be
Yeah.
like all those shitty relationships, all of those like bad, like weird zombie apocalypse things, all those,
Yeah.
whatever. I wouldn't be on the one that I would be now if I hadn't have had to have certain things capped, like certain things inabilities. Cause it's just, I didn't look at them as like that. I was like, great, I get to finally like throw all my energy into these certain projects that I've always wanted to pick up, or just let things happen universally instead of trying to force it so much, right? Like you feeling forced
Yeah.
into corporate, you're like, oh no. And then you panic attack, starts the whole thing.
Yeah.
Same. I'm, you know, working on my creative company now, and that's just like completely taken off over the corporate one. It's trumped it. I have no idea how, but it's been good. It's been really fun. I was like, wow, that's the one I wanted to work. I thought I was going to
No,
have to
I know, right? Like all of a
I was like,
sudden you realize that you can actually like have
do
fun
it.
again. It's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
one thing that I'm like, I tried to have fun at Coca-Cola, particularly. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
There was no way for me to have fun. So I'm
Mm-mm.
like, okay, I just can't do this. And
Yep.
before, you know, and if you are like me, whomever is listening, if you're like me and you realize that going back to an office gives you a panic attack again, try to find a way not to have to.
Yeah. And
That's what I would always say.
I love that you say that. And I think it's just like, I'm not all as woo woo as like, what is it? What is it? I mean, I'm into the manifestation mindset, but like one thing that I agree with is when you don't freak out about it. Just be like, I'm not going to go back to that corporate job. I'm not going to do it. It's not an option, right? You physically had to be taken out by that, like, because we're really
I
stubborn.
had, I
You know,
had a
you're like,
panic. Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
gonna
The
die.
stubborn, my own stubbornness.
But if you treat like I'm the same way, we're very similar. But if you can treat it, I almost say treat it as like a lighthearted life or death situation where like I'm not gonna do that, and put it in the back of your mind, because I bet you may not be that day, but the next day or the next day something is gonna come up, and that's gonna be for you because you just made that an option for yourself,
Yeah.
for the universe to present it.
And exactly. Make them work on something. Don't think that whatever, as little as it may sound, that you're whatever project you have on the side, if you truly have the passion to do that, find a way to make a living out of it.
But I love that what you're
Oh,
doing now. And so I want to know now that you're still a military thing going on intensely, which is you're like, I'm just actually my job title is being a badass for the government now for the DoD. I'm their everything person, um, top secret everything person, and makeup skincare line. And you're doing what you love. You have an awesome boyfriend. You travel. Like any more attacks now that you've been busy, or has it been just the one isolated attack that you've had? Does it come back?
I remember this time. It was kind of, so going back to the importance of meditation, I think I prevented this one from happening. So I remember one time I am sitting in this outdoor place having a drink, and doing stuff, and all of a sudden I start thinking about all the stuff that needs to be done that I hadn't done yet, and I felt it coming, but I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. So all of a sudden I busted my app that has meditation, and I put my headphones on in the middle of the bar, and I closed my eyes and I started like
Yeah.
meditating
Just
right
out
then
of
and there. I don't care anymore because
no.
it's either that or the panic attack.
It's like
I'm
it's
gonna
gonna be
choose
way
the
more
former.
you're like, it's gonna get way more awkward up in here if I have to
Yeah, yeah.
not do some
No,
heavy
and I think
breathing.
I was, and thanks to sunglasses, you can always like put your sunglasses on. I put my headphones on, and all of a sudden I stop for a second, and it's actually like 10 minutes, like you said, right? It's like 10, 20
Yeah.
minutes that it takes you. So I made sure that my glass was full so nobody would come and ask if you want, hey, you want something else, right? No, I made sure that everything around me was
In order.
was in place so nobody would.
I love how you start
I'm
thinking
always like
that
that,
in a life or death
like,
situation, you're like, shit, what are all the things that are gonna like, just like how you're like the story before, you're like, okay, I'm gonna press send first. Like, I'm the same way. Like, I've been like, fuck, I'm gonna die. I'm dying right now. Like, I literally have had something where like I'm working a gig and it's like slicing me. I'm like, you just gotta hold on a little bit longer. Like, it's just like fine. Like, you're gonna squash somebody if you don't. Like, I treat everything from an
yeah.
email to like setting up gigs like life or death. And I'm like, I've had to pee one time editing so long, it was 6 hours. I'm like, no, but I'm in a groove right now. I'm like, oh, why do you like to torture yourself? You're definitely a renounced Catholic. What's going on? Why is this happening? No, but
Exactly. I was
you think
exactly
that.
thinking the same thing that you were
Yeah.
saying. Even like when I had my panic attack before, I was actually like when I went to the when I finally like realized that I had made it to the bed and I started breathing,
Yeah.
I had like this stupid passing thought of, well, I know how long ago this started because of the email that I
Yeah.
sent. I
You're
can
like, I wonder
I
if they're
can
gonna answer
tell
in the
like
next
how
like
long my panic attack
I'll be able to,
lasted.
you're like optimizing like your shit. You're like, this is probably not the time to try to be, at least you're thinking about the future at least. So I love that there's people out there like you because it makes me not feel, I mean, we already just, I'm like, I'm owning this shit because this is how I'm like beast out my life and stuff. But it's good to know us other aliens are out there that are perfect. So
Yeah, no, there are, yeah, no, but it's funny because yes, if I have to die, I'll make sure that everything is in order before
yeah.
I
I'm
do.
like, I got a couple last breaths. Like, let me set this like nicely.
Because when
Yeah.
they find me, I don't want to think that I'm a slacker that doesn't clean
Yeah.
after her or
I'm like,
something.
our self
No,
shame
no,
is,
actually,
yeah.
now that we joke about that, that was the one thing that I think bothered me because I remember that my dinner plate was still in the sink instead of like being in the dishwasher. When I walk after
You're
my
like,
panic attack, I'm like, I didn't put the dish in the
oh my God. You're like so much shame. You're like, fuck. You're like, no, no, it's like so funny. Like these little
dishwasher.
random things we hold on to. And you're like, no, it's still
I
gonna bother me.
know,
But
I
you're like, shit, that would still bother me at this point. Like, um,
yeah,
but
no, it didn't, it really didn't bother me, but
yeah.
it would have been funny if I actually noticed it. But so one of the things too about after the panic attack is that once I finally came back to like breathing normally and realized that, my hands and toes and everything had already been loosened up, I fell asleep. I fell asleep in my
Oh,
clothes on my bed.
Like
And I woke
hard,
up
I'm sure.
like, oh
Hard.
my God, like I hadn't slept so good in a very long time. I woke up because I was cold and hungry.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm hungry because your body has taken so much out of you
Mm-hmm.
that all of a sudden you feel that you're depleted of food.
Everything.
I was very cold too,
Yeah.
right?
You
Like
probably
I fell
sweat
asleep on.
a bunch. Do you sweat a bunch out
I'm
maybe? Yeah.
I woke up, I don't sweat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
You're
I
like,
don't normally, like,
because it's
even
just
when I
like,
ran,
it's
I
like
don't really sweat.
so much energy it's using to do
But
that.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
felt cold and hungry, and I woke up like at 3 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, time to make some breakfast.
Yeah, I'm gonna just binge out
I'm
right
gonna make
now.
some
But
breakfast.
I
Yeah.
want to thank you so much for being on here because you are just like a wealth of like knowledge in all of the areas of being a badass, being a scientist, being fearless, having an entrepreneurial mindset, and then also going through like a super humanizing experience that that we all can have. Like I've heard this from like every walks of life, and so shedding your knowledge on it and just being here in general, because I'm going to have you back on to talk about a lot of other things, is super special. So thank you so much, Marta, for being here. Mhm.
Thank you so much, Hope. Yeah. Just find me on LinkedIn, Marta Pazos. I am working on my websites and all of that. So I'm sure then whenever we talk again,
Oh
I'll
yeah.
have more. But in the meantime, if you want to reach out to me for any type of work that you need with your consumer goods packaging, formulation, and you have some coatings, adhesives, decorations, materials, questions, I am more than happy to help. So just find me on LinkedIn.
All right. And that was Marta Pazos, the badass, explosive DoD polymer scientist, beauty super spy. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm so happy that I can share with you guys these interesting, special snowflake individuals, but then we can also just find such common ground. Because what I want to do is show and prove to you it doesn't matter if you're corporate, it doesn't matter if you're an artist, it doesn't matter if you're a scientist or a painter or a singer. You know, we're all, at the end of the day, just want to be happy. We're trying to represent ourselves the best way possible. We're just trying to be seen by others and, you know, keep our brand on point. Whether you work for somebody else or not, like, you know what I mean? Like, you are your own brand. You're bringing that every single day. And, you know, this show is more for entrepreneurs, but just know if you are stuck in corporate, you can make that shift. Leave the opportunity for your own happiness. It's not late until the lights are out, right? Don't stress, because you're going to give yourself a panic attack too about this. Don't stress about how it's going to happen as much as allowing the opportunity to come into your life. And that is one thing that I will say. Absolutely, when we can stop trying to stuff and micromanage and take control, and we can just like let it be, just move towards that next logical step to get there. What's the next step? What's the next step? You know, stop compounding the interest of shit on your plate. My whole deal, for example, is I have a digital to-do list. I had a written down to-do list. And of course, I'd have to rehash all of that. I got this and this and this and this and this and this. So it's just one giant explosion of, holy shit, now my job is to just list off all the shit I have to do today. Like, that's not going to get anything done. It's terrible. It's like, get rid of it. Put it down, write it down, do it, and chip away at that next logical step, like a tactical, diligent leader. It will clear up your brain. It will immediately open that channel for pure focus in just that task. And then you don't have to carry it with you. Because, dude, like, we have phones. It's in your phone, right? It's in your notebook. Cool. Try Yoga Nidra. Do some meditation. Stay awesome and stay classy out there, everybody. Woo! Why don't you just like share it with everybody that you know, and like your grandmother and your dog and your cat and like your best friends and those kids that you went to high school with, and like, you know, whatever, whoever the fuck you want to share this with, I don't care, but you should just be sharing it probably, because it'd be a smart move. So don't forget to like and subscribe.